Strategies for Real Estate, a 30-minute program updating you on today's real estate market and discussing current issues and opportunities in the desirable Silicon Valley. Plus, interviews with real estate experts giving you insight on what's to come. With your host, Dan Lawson. And now, Strategies for Real Estate.
Hello and welcome to our weekly Spotlight segment. I'm very happy you're with us on this segment, and I'm very much looking forward to my conversation with Amie Gray, CEO of N-Cubed Innovation.
Thank you, Dan. My pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, I like the idea of I consider myself somewhat of an innovator. I've been a business owner for many, many years, and it was always interesting to come up with ideas, and the implementation of the ideas always seemed to be what was most challenging in things. But to get into some of the questions, it just seems as though innovation has been a very trendy word. It just rolled off my tongue so easily. So how would someone who's an expert in that area define innovation?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question, because innovation is a very trendy word these days. A lot of people are using it in many different ways. It could be used to be equivalent of new. And you see a lot of marketing words that are like that, such as Nissan lately bringing out their commercial innovation that excites. I don't know if that means anything to anybody who might want to own a Nissan.
And but it is an interesting phrase. It's very catchy,
right? Yeah, so innovation to me is a strategy. It's a strategy to create the future, and there's a mechanistic and planned way that you can go about it.
So why would you, I shouldn't say why would someone want a process, but because I'm sure you have a process to help people move through this flow. So help us understand that process flow so someone can implement the innovative idea they have.
Sure. So once you have an idea, it's great, but the question is, did somebody think of that idea before me? And a lot of times, 99% of the time, that could be the case. And so that means that you need more time. And if you need more time, then you have to have a process to analyze what's going on in the markets, what's happening with technology, and what others are doing in the market, so that you can create a differentiated product. And that's what the process is about. And so that's basically those three steps. So what's happening now? What are the trends that are going to impact my market or the industry that I'm in? And what does that mean in terms of opportunities, and where can I start to innovate and distinguish myself from the competition?
I see. So what are some of the fundamentals about the process to start innovating and seeing this, kind of getting the train out of the station, so to speak, with your idea?
Yeah, so maybe I can give you an example if that would work. Okay, so let's think about cars. We've all been in cars and driven cars, but we can see that there are some things that are happening in the market right now. So for example, there's Uber and Lyft and some ride-sharing applications. So that's kind of out there in one sense. Then we've got, separate from that, we've got Google, who's working on a self-driving car, and then we've got Tesla working on bigger, more powerful, further range electric vehicles. And so then you think, well, how does that all play together? And you might think, you might look at some of the trends as well. So we've got people who are moving to the cities, as I think you've talked about on this show many times, about urbanization and people either downsizing or just getting started and want to live in a city. It's very walkable, close to transportation, all that sort of stuff. We've got the government the Department of Transportation has issued a mandate for cars to communicate with each other, which is vehicle-to-vehicle communication.
Is this why we're seeing so many commercials about it's braking, and you almost don't have to look and it'll stop if it picks up that another car or something?
Yeah. So that's part of it too. So there's a lot of technology. I didn't realize that was a governmental mandate. There's a lot of technology going into cars to improve safety and to improve road safety. And so now what we have is cars that operate independently, but think about cars talking to each other. And once they're talking to each other, that means they're connected over a cellular system or some sort of network. Then they can talk to other things. So Department of Transportation is just making the first step. The next step after that is, what if they can talk to stoplights? Or what if they could manage traffic? Or what if they could talk to other things like weather, and they could alert you that there's some bad weather or ice on the road or something ahead of you? Right. That would be very handy for safety. And so then where's the opportunity? So let's look at the trends in combination with what's going on today. And so, autonomous vehicles are really probably not that far away. So not that far away means maybe 5 to 10 years. So if we have autonomous vehicles that nobody has to put gas into, that can drive themselves, that we're not paying that much attention to what's going on, that's a big change from where we are today. And so what are the opportunities? Well, we can get point-to-point transportation without labor. So think about that. What does that mean for taxi companies who employ drivers, or bus companies, or things like that? And so that would be a change, but it is an opportunity and maybe something that some businesses would want to think about.
What's interesting about this as well is, if you're working with, maybe I have a company that services buses.
Yes.
You might say,
and there's a whole value chain associated with that.
What's your plan if this really evolves and people aren't necessarily needing to take buses, and you won't have a client. There won't be buses to work on. They're going to mothball them all.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
So this is just another example of looking far enough out and begin to help a company, any company that may be experiencing some functional obsolescence about what's coming in that trend, to say, can you begin to retool now so you can match with the trends that are coming?
That's right, and gaining as much time in advance of that change so that you have time to plan and you have time to prepare is very important.
Yes,
and that's
proactiveness
what gives you,
rather than reactiveness.
And that's what gives you the advantage in the market. That's exactly right, yeah. And so think a little bit more about cars. I don't know, you have grandchildren?
Yeah, I do, yes.
They might not even need a driver's license. They may need a different kind of driver's license.
Exactly.
Yeah, and what about adults at that time, 5 to 10 years from now? They're learning to drive today. They're driving a car today. What kind of transition do we need to go through to make them comfortable with a self-driving car rather than a car that's driven themselves?
Right.
And so there's, I think, opportunity even in that.
Or even in 20 years, I'll be in my late 70s.
How about
what if I'm not able to?
Exactly. How about
maybe
the
I'm
disabled?
blind, or somebody who has some impairment of some form.
Some disability services, senior services, all kinds of things could come up as the autonomous vehicle becomes more prevalent on the roads.
That's very interesting. Yeah, what are some other examples you have of maybe different industries apart from automobiles?
Should we talk about real estate, Dan?
I'm a little nervous about this, but yes. No, actually, please. I want to hear about this.
Sure. So we know that there's a lot more information out there, and that's not new. So buyers and sellers have a ton more information than they ever had before.
Right.
Airbnb, although not for sales but for rentals, is actually offering or adding a social component too, because the rental properties are how is the host and how is the property and is it kept and what was your experience and all that stuff. So Zillow, for example, or Trulia has that information component, but maybe not the social component. What's the neighborhood like? How are the schools? All of that sort of thing that people do want to know when they move in to the neighborhood. And then there's other things that are going on with the homes themselves. So homes are becoming smarter. So we've got Xfinity, at least here in the Bay Area, who are offering some services that would make a smart home, so to say. So you can see people coming into your house. Are your kids getting in? Can you let them in remotely? Things like that. And so
with remote temperature controls and
and
all
Nest.
Of these things.
I mean, Nest was purchased by Google for a huge amount of money, which you got to wonder what Google's motivation is there. But nonetheless, there's an opportunity to control your home from a remote position. And so there's an interesting combination there too. If I've got social information plus I can do remote control, then maybe I can do something like, if my friends are coming over, I know when they're gonna be there, and I can make sure that the doors are open and the lights are on and things are gone. Maybe I even turn on the oven so that the dinner's getting cooked.
Well, as an innovator and an expert in this area, would you consider yourself a futurist? I mean, all the things we're talking about, it's always. So you must like science fiction. I don't know. but let's stay with our.
So the futurist is interesting. They think about trends that are very far out from where we are.
Right.
I tend to think of myself being a little bit more on the vision side, but then adding a very practical implementation. So it's great to know what those opportunities are, but it's more important to know what you want to do with them right now so that you can be ready and be in a position to capitalize on those trends.
So once an opportunity is identified, what's the next step?
So once an opportunity is identified, the important thing is to figure out how do I make that a business. And so you need to go take that back all the way into what do I have today, what can I build, or what do I need to build, or what do I need to acquire in order to create that, and to create a strategy from A to B, or A to Z, or however you want to think about it, from beginning to end. And then you can also use a model that I've created called the Innovation Adoption Model, and that starts with feasibility. So is it feasible? And then you could look at other components such as is it secure? Are people aware of it? Are there incentives, and what's the value of it?
And in your experience, what do you see as the biggest challenge, or maybe the greatest opportunity to create this economic value and economic model?
The biggest challenge for every business is not starting soon enough. And so getting ahead of the trends, understanding what they're going to do to your business, and start moving, and moving really fast, is the #1 thing people need to do.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you very much for sharing with us today.
My pleasure, Dan.
I'd love to have you on more. We can go into a particular aspect of your concepts and really drill down.
Would love to. Thank you very
wonderful.
much.